All right, guys, good afternoon.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm doing fine. There you go. Okay,
There
good.
you go. Okay. Hi, doctor.
Hi there,
Uh,
how are you?
okay, so Dr. Doroudian is at Better Life Pharma,
Right.
and this is an interesting area. I know that we have actually discussed this on the show before, Greg.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
long time ago, as I remember.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't this company, but it was another psychedelic-based company. And so, Dr. Darusian, why don't you tell us how you got into this
Okay,
to
hold on
start?
just a second. Let's get, when do you want to start, Charles?
We're starting now.
Oh, okay. Hold on just,
Okay,
can you fix your camera?
not right now. I can't.
Ooh, okay, okay. Because this is going on the YouTube TV.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, we're starting now.
Not yet. Not yet.
How's my camera? Is that good?
It
Excellent.
looks great. It looks
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Plus, I'm the least important person on this call.
Come on.
I know.
Honesty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So,
Where are you
doctor,
folks based? Sorry, I don't know where where are you based in the southern US?
actually, I'm based in Cuba.
And
Oh, Cuba.
No,
Cool.
I'm just kidding. South Florida.
and,
Florida, okay.
and I'm in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Our radio station is in a relatively new city called Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah. And we're
I
as
am
of
based in Vancouver, which is
yes,
about
my
an
favorite
hour and a
city.
half north of Seattle.
My
Or a
favorite
couple hours.
city. Someday I will take my wife there. I used to cover a lot of events when I was at ESPN in Vancouver.
I highly recommend it.
Oh, it's beautiful. It is really beautiful.
My
Oh,
my problem is that my passport is expired and they only take about 30 weeks to get new ones. And you can't just drive through into Canada and come back with your driver's license
Yeah,
anymore.
like the old days.
Yeah,
well, now,
Crazy.
Charles, when you get the new one,
yeah.
get the card to go with it.
Oh, I did get the card. I've
Okay,
always had
size
that.
of a credit card. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Greg, because in point of fact, I went to Cuba about 2 years ago, and I specifically used only the card as
Wow.
opposed to the passport because I
Passport.
want it
Yeah.
stamped.
Yep. Yeah. No,
Oh, interesting.
that's
So you used your Nexus card,
Yes.
yes.
right?
Yeah.
I have that. I have that card.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's an excellent, easy way to do things.
we have to use that passport card to get into Miami.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. It's getting there.
Are we ready, Greg?
We're getting close. Yep. Yeah, actually, we're very close. Here we go, guys. Well, a very pleasant good day. It's time for Money Info with Charles Moskowitz.
How are you this morning, Greg?
Doing fine. How are you?
Great. So we have with us this morning Dr. Ahmad Doroudian, and he is with Better Life Pharma. And Better Life Pharma uses non-hallucinogenic psychedelic drugs. And this is an area that has really come to life over the last couple of years. And unfortunately, like most new areas, everybody got real excited and ran the stocks up beyond beyond any reasonable valuation, and they've settled back now. And that's why we're taking this opportunity at this point in time to talk to the doctor. Dr. Doroudian, am I right here? You're using these non-hallucinogenic psychedelics for things like depression and PTSD and
Right.
general overall mental health?
Yes. Thanks for having us. Yeah, we're our company's Better Life Pharma. We are under the symbol BETRF, BETRF on OTC markets. And about 2 years ago, we are a pharma biotech group, lots of experience in developing pharmaceuticals and various ailments. And this opportunity came. We acquired certain assets that were related to some, it's 2-bromo LSD, which is basically a very close cousin of LSD, the famous, LSD that's been around since Albert Hofmann in Switzerland synthesized it. Yeah. And it really was something that we always thought, psychedelics and the whole stigma attached to it is not really what would make a difference in terms of treating millions and millions of people with various ailments such as depression, which is very prevalent globally, and it's gotten worse under, with 2 years of COVID and other issues that people are facing. So we were very skeptical. We really thought that in order to open the floodgates, if you want to use psychedelics, you need to have, psychedelics are very potent. We know they work. We know they're not addictive, unlike opioids. And unfortunately, because of stigma, not a lot of research was, unless you were, parts of San Francisco and Woodstock, not a lot of research was done properly. Pharmaceutical.
Yeah, but that wasn't legal, though, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I was very, very honest with my colleagues that I know nothing about psychedelics. The closest thing I have experienced psychedelic experience is when I hold my dog, and I can't explain why I feel good, and just the way it is. But we started looking at this in terms of a pharma approach and a more practical approach that can actually make a difference in people's lives, is a non-hallucinogenic approach using psychedelic molecules, which we know work, but the hallucination is a nasty side effect. It needs supervision. You need to go to a clinic. So all of that from, my perspective, I have 30 years experience in the pharma space, from commercial to operations and all that, was very limited. If you have to bring a teacher, a bus driver, or a regular, Mr. Joe America to a clinic, that costs money. That's just somewhat prohibitive. But if you can treat them at home with this, that's what we thought would make a difference. So we started looking at 2-bromo LSD, very, very close analog of LSD, and lots of anecdotal evidence that this thing has some effects and similar to LSD. So we started, we reached out to some of the prominent centers in the US, and like Adam Halberstadt at University of California, San Diego, John McCorvey, University of Wisconsin, and Argel Valers at Carleton University. So we gathered experts. We brought in advisors like Tom Laughlin, Mass General. He was in the US military major. He's a Department of Psychiatry. He served the FDA. He treated soldiers for 10 years. So a lot of experience, and we were kind of learning as we go along, as we were generating data on the 2-bromo LSD, with the caveat that this will make a difference. If we can actually use a psychedelic compound without its hallucinogenic type side effects, we can actually develop a real pharmaceutical that can make a difference in people's lives. And from, you know,
So you're producing this, doctor? It's not the naturally occurring psilocybin from.
It's not. It's not a naturally occurring compound. So we started from a very, very scratch, because what we didn't want to do, another thing we didn't want to do, is handle anything that's regulated or scheduled along the way. So the chemistry of this, it took us about 8 months with world-renowned chemists, synthetic chemists, to figure it out that at no stage of this synthesis we produce anything that's regulated. So we don't have any, we don't deal with LSD, we don't have a residual LSD, we don't have all of that stuff that requires lots of licenses and permits and, you know, different. So the narrative for us is we don't need any laws to be changed at the state or federal level, because the substance that we're dealing with is not regulated.
Right.
And we don't need people go to clinics. That appealed to me in terms of a,
and of course, you're
practical
not
approach.
You're not dealing with anything with impurities if you're starting from the ground up.
Exactly. And we don't need, again, I don't know if you folks are familiar with the cannabis space. In Canada, about 15 years ago, the whole space turned and everybody was saying, you know, it's going to be legalized, it's going to be legalized, it's going to be legalized in the US. John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, joined the cannabis company. This is done and still is not legal at the federal level. So which creates a lot of issues when you're processing, handling, storing, dosing patients. Yeah. So with psychedelics is even more augmented because their effects are, you know, much different than cannabis related products.
Now, doctor, you had a major conference in Vancouver just a couple of weeks ago, right? On mental health.
Yes. So mental health is, again, this expanded from a pure brand psychedelic type approach to, as Charles said, you know, stocks ran up and people got all excited about it. The paper out of Johns Hopkins and some credible institutions that showed that, you know, these compounds actually work and it can make a difference, to a little more, okay, you know, after a year and a half of space getting mature up from psychedelic into a pure mental health type look at this. What can we do to make a difference in, you know, a number of patients that a number of people who are suffering from some of these ailments that is practical, patient-friendly, cost-effective. So that's what it is. You are absolutely right. Now we don't necessarily call it a psychedelic approach. We call it, you know, medication for mental health that actually doesn't have any of the side effects that are typically associated with psychedelic compounds.
And is this also under the heading of microdosing, or that's not an issue for you because the psychedelic portion is removed or non-existent in your?
Good question. No, we don't deal with microdosing, again, because this does not have any hallucinogenic side effects. Dosing is not an issue. In fact, we have data from San Diego showing that in a head-to-head comparison with LSD and other well-known hallucinogenic compounds at much higher doses, our 2-bromo LSD formulation did not produce any hallucinogenic effects. So that all that data we put together from the synthesis from San Diego on hallucinogenic side effects, plus a lot of brain studies we did on brain receptors, how this binds, how this activates certain brain receptors that are known to be part of the process to, for treating depression and so on. These are the same receptors LSD acts on. So, so we generated a body of data in the last 6-8 months, and we're getting close to a package to be ready to submit it to the FDA to start human trials early 2023.
Yeah, I saw the group that has helped fund it, MITRAS. They're a
MICAX is a nonprofit organization that works with various institutions in Canada. You're right, and it's a matching fund type thing. So we funded half, and they match that as part of, you know, they get government funding, they get organizations that support this. So obviously we're a public company, but we think that, you know, any kind of this thing would have broad benefits for you know, for everybody once we get this thing off the ground. So yeah, we got some of the funding from the government. We are also right now actively looking for this and in discussions with partners. These are you know, typical biotech. We do the stages that we can do. We're not Pfizer with, you know, 10,000 man army on the next steps of evolution of this. So we're now looking at partners who are, you know, at a different phase, and that can help us or partner with us to advance this at a much you know, better rate with the FDA and beyond.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, I know that you have a free healthcare regimen in Canada.
Right.
So I'm assuming that that can actually be covered. Are you working anywhere else where you'd have to deal with insurance companies to have, you know, a code number for payments?
Well, actually, Charles, Canada's healthcare system does not cover pharmaceuticals.
Ah,
You
okay.
see, it covers anything from A to Z related to doctors and hospitals and walk-in clinics and diagnosis and anything in between, and surgery and so on. But it doesn't cover pharmaceuticals per se. So we don't deal, or pharmaceutical companies don't necessarily deal with governments for payment.
Right.
You know, yeah. So prices is lower than the US. There's some restrictions on patented pharmaceuticals, pricing control, but on the generics and everything else, the price is dictated by the market, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so PTSD, mental health issues, sleep issues, any of the really common things that we see around?
We are initially, we will be targeting a depression. Depression,
right, okay.
As you know, right now, the majority of the companies working on, you know, psychedelic related and compounds to treat depression, they're all going to be needed what they call assisted therapy. Means you need to go to a clinic. So we think that limits the number of patients you can treat in a very significant way. So our thing about depression being one of the biggest areas, and anxiety, are two areas that we will be looking at, and maybe cluster headache. Cluster headache is smaller numbers, but it's a nasty indication that people don't really have any treatment for. So those are the ones that we are well, now, to be completely transparent here, once we get into human trials, we may add indications based on some of the evidence we find along the way. But right now, depression is one of the main indications we'll be looking for, because LSD and LSD type compounds have been shown to be very effective. And we think majority of people, either because of you know, they're shamed into it, or cost, or, I mean, I just heard this in another conference. There's in the United States, there is 3 million healthcare practitioners in the mental health area needed. So the system is missing about 3 million practitioners. So
Right.
we want to avoid that, and in having, just like you get your antibiotic with instructions or other medications, you go to Walgreens or Duane Reade and you fill your prescription, you go home and you follow instructions of the label or the doctor to treat yourself. We think that the regular, healthcare worker, teacher, policeman, bus driver will be able to, in a privacy of their own home, treat this ailment much better than just, going to a clinic and getting hooked up to some hallucinogenic compound and be treated.
Doctor, have you gotten any feedback at all from like the VA as to the effects of PTSD?
Well, it's a very good question. Actually, one of our very first advisors, Tom Laughlin, that's how we brought him in, not because of experience, mostly because of experience at the FDA, but his firsthand experience with the military. He treated soldiers for 10 years, was invaluable to us, because he was saying, you are absolutely right, to treat, which is a chronic, right? Which is this is a big issue with the U.S. military, the soldiers that deal with depression and PTSD and all of that. It will be a lot better if this was done on a non-hallucinogenic basis, and that's how he joined us. So yeah, I think we don't have direct contact with the VA yet. I think that comes in the next stage of once we have some more data. But we definitely are very cognizant that U.S. military, especially, and these young men and women who are at the front of a lot of awful things that they see, they will be the first ones that would need something like this to be treated.
Interesting. So if you had to characterize how they actually feel when they take a regimen of whatever they're being prescribed for,
Right.
would you say that it's like some of the depression medications that we take here, where you take them and take them and take them, they don't have any specific side effects, but then as it's built up in your system, all of a sudden, that you feel better. That something is
right.
not bothering you as much, but it's not like taking, for example, Valium, and
Going to sleep.
15 minutes after you take it, you've taken it.
Right. The evidence from humans on 2-bromo-LSD is scarce. So I just want to put that, the N number is not very large. There has been, it has been used in healthy volunteers in cluster headache. There was a paper out of Harvard in 2010. So I want to clarify the difference between the antidepressants that we have now on the market. They are what we call serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So you have something in your brain between the two synapses that basically they make serotonin to hang out there a little longer. The LSD and LSD type compounds like 2-bromo-LSD are different. They actually activate the receptor that mediates the getting rid of the depression. So it's a different mechanism. And what we have in terms of evidence from people who have taken this is that they feel euphoric, or they feel happy when they take it, or they feel a little bit drunk, but they're not hallucinating. So
okay.
It's a completely different mechanism. But Charles, I can't profess to say that we have a large enough N number in patients that we could make a categoric statement on what people actually feel. But so far, what has been administered in people and the reports in a few papers, this says basically it's different than antidepressants.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. And what about the business side of the company? Um, is there, I mean, I know that clinical trials and testing tends to be very expensive.
Yes.
And even though you have a partner, how big would you say the market is in terms of what it could earn Better Life going forward once these things are rolled out in a greater scale?
Right. That's a very good question. Obviously, very early on, we did a pharmacoeconomic modeling of this. Just on the depression alone, and with the cost and things that we can build into our model, this would be 2-3 billion peak sales type product. Just on that indication alone in the United States. I'm not talking globally.
Right.
Secondly, in terms of our situation is, as you said very early on, the whole market came down, and as the stocks were coming down, we were actually generating data. So I was telling my team, while the value of our shares going down, the value of our assets going up with the great data that we have generated.
Right.
So what we have decided, Charles, is that you're right. Clinical trials are expensive. They run into, just phase 1, 10 to 15 million, depending on how you want to design them, and then phase 2 and 3. So we have a very detailed budget of every step of this. So what we're doing is now looking for that right partner to make sure that we have an optimized cost of capital and we don't ruin our share price and deliver. We want to deliver the best value for the shareholders, and we think that there's a these bigger companies with a balance sheet that has a lot of cash in it, but their pipeline is weak. They're opposite of us in a way, in a mirror image of us in terms of a balance sheet. We think that's a better approach to deliver, to partner with this, potentially great asset, and partner with them, because that would greatly reduce our cost of capital.
Yeah,
and get us in a different place.
I'll make 2 comments about this. As I always looked at some of the smaller biopharma companies, I was always interested in whether or not they had a good strategic partner, or were looking for a good strategic partner, as you are. Right. So that shareholders didn't get diluted, because obviously, as we've already discussed, it gets very expensive. And the second thing is that a lot of people don't understand about what you're doing and the methodology behind it. I kind of liken it to the current situation with Tesla. Tesla has an intellectual property that nobody really talks about, and that is the experience in digital form of 1 billion miles of driving, and how the car reacted to this, that, or the other impetus, whether it was a pothole or whatever it is. And frankly, intellectual property in biopharma, certainly in the area that you're talking about, really has a value. Over the last couple of years, intellectual property has become a major asset on the balance sheets of companies, whether they're biotech or their electric vehicle. Right. The amount of information and the learning experience through it, and especially through AI, really makes that a very valuable piece of the puzzle with your company.
Charles, you are spot on. I can't tell you how much value of IP. That's why when you said, is this a natural compound or synthetic? Because it's very, very difficult to patent anything around natural compounds, as you know. So what we did from the very beginning, the IP around this, we have a very comprehensive marquee patent file, provisional patent file, that gets us composition of matter, formulation, treatment. So we have set up a very, very comprehensive set of IP around this, and I'll share this with you guys. When it has put us in a different level, Charles, because IP doesn't always stand scrutiny.
Right.
I can tell you that. So what we have done is, with a couple of the larger groups that we're talking to, I can't disclose their name, they have actually hired some of the most prominent third-party IP groups to review this, and we have passed with flying color. So I can tell you, and that was important for me, because a lot of times your own lawyers, your own IP lawyers are happy to work with you, invoice you, and things happen. But when a third party comes, look at it without anything other than a cold look at this. Are these guys drinking their own Kool-Aid, or is this actually real? I'm very happy to tell you that on the IP side, we have gone to a different level of scrutiny, and I'm happy to tell you that this IP is so important to us right now that it makes our asset a lot more valuable than if it wasn't in case.
Yeah, you know, I've had this discussion with Greg and with others over the past couple of years, and in the biopharma area in particular, this is the way that R&D sort of gets done in a lot of companies. What they do is they find a company that they are interested in the same line of, whether it's mRNA or cancer treatments or immunogenics. I mean, and what happens is they watch these little companies, and as these little companies, I mean, almost every single day, or certainly a couple of times a week, what you'll see is you'll see a big biotech firm pay 150 or 200% premium for a little company for $1 billion or $2 billion, because in the grand scheme of things, $1 billion or $2 billion in a big biopharma company is nothing.
Right.
But they don't take their assets, and they don't take the time and energy of their staff. What they do is they watch, they see a breakthrough, and all of a sudden, you know, a $4 stock becomes a takeover at 20,
Right.
and it's done. And that is still pretty much the most economical way for them to be in multiple areas that they have an interest.
You're right, Charles. This is the evolution of this industry over the last 30, 40 years. It used to be, when I was born, there were 35 big pharmas. Now we have 6. So
Right.
This consolidation that happened made this, because they used to do everything, discovery to market. One company did all of that. Now, you're absolutely right. We're getting a lot smarter and more efficient, that these smaller groups like us, who are more efficient and advancing at every step than a 100,000 man organization, we get the data, and they look at 50 or 100 of us, and as data comes out, if they're in oncology or cardiology or various things, they start following you. And once you set things up, then you can go to them, and they're happy to write $1 billion check, but they don't want to spend 5 years and a lot of resources to generate all of that. I've dealt with big pharma. They're not, Novartis. I used to buy products from Novartis. They're mature products. I mean, they're their campus in Basel is bigger than the university I went to in here. And they, and this is true story. In one of our transactions, I wanted to give, it was a Thursday. I said, you know, we're sending you $3 million wire. Can you arrange it on the other side? The guy said, I don't have anyone to take it here. I said, what do you mean? Just get a lawyer. He said, listen, we have 720 lawyers on staff. That's bigger than lawyers in Western Canada.
Right. Yeah. All right, Dr. Doroudian, thanks for being with us today. I definitely want to stay involved with the story. Why don't you give the listeners both the website address and the symbol again?
Sure. Our symbol is BETRF on OTC market, and our website is www.belifepharma.com. belifepharma.com.
And I will be sending you a YouTube video of this that you can post on your website. I will post it on ours, and of course the radio station, who has a huge internet following besides their terrestrial listeners, will also archive it so that it will be here until the next time.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Dr.
this
Doroudian.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And we have Bruce Nurse. Now, I have one really important question for you, Bruce.
Sure, Charles.
It's probably going to seem somewhat unrelated, but how did you manage to get your name on the 22-footer?
Hey, you know, listen, Charles, I love to take credit for it. I get asked that all the time.
I mean, it's a good-looking boat.
It's a gorgeous. That's our high-end boat.
Well, and it looks like it because it has all of those classic Chris Craft
Absolutely.
lines.
Yes, yeah, no question. It's our high-end boat. It's got mahogany teak, fine Italian leather. You can pimp this thing out as far as you want to go, but I cannot take credit for that. Unfortunately, there's a gentleman, his name is Ian Bruce. Ian Bruce was a Olympic sailor out of Canada, in addition to building the laser sailboat. I think they sold over 200,000 units worldwide. Ian Bruce was a mentor to the founders of Vision Marine Technology, Alex Mangione and Patrick Bobby. Ian Bruce helped design 3 of our models that we have on our platform, our e-commerce platform for consumers to buy if they so choose. But the name comes from Ian Bruce, our Bruce 22.
Okay.
I just have one question for you at Vision Marine Technologies. We had an old Grand Banks 50. Have you got an electric motor for that?
Well, you know what? I get that question a lot, and I can get into it now, or I can talk about it later. But our E-Motion powertrain, which is 180 horse, fully electric outboard motor, and I'll talk about the market and where the market's going from inboard to outboard, etc. There is no one globally that has the power, speed, and as we all know, torque from electric vehicles. So we have an electric outboard that we're selling direct to the OEMs. We are not getting into the retrofit market at this stage with the consumer. And I'll tell you, if I had the option to sell this E-Motion to the consumer, we're 6 months into the year, I'd probably have 200 of them sold, because there's a huge demand for electric on the waterways. One, from an environmental standpoint, it cleans our waterways. It gets rid of the gas and diesel that's polluting not just the marine life, but destroying our shorelines, etc. As we all know today, with oil prices, the oil's come off a bit, sitting at $100 on the WTI. But if you go to a marina and try and fill up your gas tank, depending on what boat you have, it's running you some serious dollars, and you may be jotting around on that water going to get an ice cream with your family, and that ice cream turns out to be $100 ice cream cone. So there is a huge demand for the e-motion powertrain, but we're selling it direct to the boat manufacturers.
Or
And-
$1,000 ice cream cone in case
Or
of the last
$1,000.
weekend.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's expensive.
I spend a lot of time on or near the water, and it amazes me. Outboard use really seems to be taking off to levels that I hadn't really seen. And I mean, I see boats between here and I'm in Boston.
Okay, sure.
So I see boats between here and the Vineyard and,
Yep.
you know, down on the Cape and over to Nantucket. And it amazes me that I see, you know, a good sized boat, so something over 28 or 30 feet, you know, with 4 or 6 outboards. And that always surprises me. I guess it's a huge space saving issue in the hull, as opposed to having to have that kind of power. But it just amazes me. I mean, I see, you know, I see boats with 6 350s on them.
Yeah, well, Charles, you're right, and I'll use some facts here. There's an association called the National Marine Manufacturers Association. In essence, they're the union, the lobbyists, they're the data collector for anything and everything marine related. And they have quoted numerous facts that we're seeing a movement away from inboard to outboard. In 2020, there was 329,000 outboard motors sold in the US alone. They were mainly ICE, gas, diesel, run outboard motors. That number is expected to reach 1.5 million in 2025, just based off the demand from inboard to outboard. And to your point, Charles, guys are putting 2, 3, 5 outboard motors on their back of their boats. And, you know, if you go down to Florida, I've spent some time in Florida, and you see these boats, they're out into the Gulf Stream, which is 18, 20 miles out, with 3 or 4 or 5 of these outboard motors on the back of them. And it costs them a fortune to run. But it comes down to one real main reason that they're moving from inboard to outboard. It's just ease of maintenance. It's as simple as that, in essence. It's ease of maintenance. You do not have to pull out that boat if you have an inboard, get it looked at, get a mechanic. It costs you thousands. You still have to maintain those. But the outboard motor market, man, you can just pull the top and do your spark plugs, make your oil change, etc. So it's ease of maintenance. In addition to, these guys can put, you know, like you said, 4 350s, or Mercury came out. I was at the Miami Boat Show a few months back. Mercury came out with a 600 horse outboard motor. There was a boat with 2 of those on. Crazy. But those guys, listen, Charles, those guys have more money than you and I can talk about. And, you know, whether they're filling up for $10 a gallon or $15 a gallon, it doesn't matter to them.
Right.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
As far as limitations and I guess time of running an electric motor, could you make it from here, say Port St. Lucie, over to the Bahamas?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no charging stations out in the last time I checked in the ocean.
Yeah, no, I was actually pretty impressed when I looked at that deck and saw that, you know, you figured that you could last the whole day.
Yeah, we've got a full day charge on the batteries. And what we've done is we've partnered with a company called Octillion. Octillion's out of the San Francisco area. They have built, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 batteries for the electric vehicle market. We've come in, partnered with them to help design and develop our own battery. And if you think about a battery for the electric vehicle versus a hull on the water, two different things, right? An electric vehicle battery is on the chassis of that car. It's wide, it's long, it's the whole chassis. Well, we don't want that in a hull, whether that's a pontoon, a center console, or just a runabout, a powerboat. You want to make sure that you have the fit in those hulls. And so what we have done is we've narrowed it, not as wide, not as long, and we brought it together. We offer with our unit, with our eMotion powertrain, the 180 horsepower, to 35 kilowatts. So a total of 70 kilowatts on the batteries, and that gives you a full day charge. A lot of people ask, well, if I'm out in the middle of water, am I going to lose power? There's a little play with electric vehicles and electric outboard and the battery. So there is a margin. We have a whole monitoring system. As you know, with Tesla, it's the software. It's the software that drives that electric vehicle. Yes, it's the battery that's going to push that motor, but if you don't have that software, you don't know what you're doing. Same with us. We have a software and monitoring system that gives you everything that you need to know about the power and where you are, etc. But you have a full day. We're not looking at going offshore. We're not going, we're not going to go across the Bahamas. We're looking at more the lakes, rivers, intercoastal, the recreational family. I believe the pontoon market is our biggest market. It is the fastest growing market for the development of boats, manufacturing boats.
Your pontoon boat is very attractive.
Yeah, that's StarCraft. We have rigged other pontoons, and it's an ideal product, our eMotion on the back of a pontoon for the family. The family wants to get out there, whether they're going to the sandbar or they're going to the marina to have a drink or whatever it is. They're cruising around. But two things that we offer that no one else offers is, one, that consumer can get that boat up on plane very quickly. Whether you're water skiing, wakeboarding, tubing, etc., you can pull that guy out of the water, get on plane, and you're going. So you get the speed to get to where you want. We've quoted miles up to 49, 50, 60 miles an hour on our boats with our eMotion powertrain. In addition to the fact that it gives you that long range on the battery. So you come and you're cruising around for the day. Most of the pontoons are recreational families. They're not going 20 miles an hour. They're going 10 miles an hour. So they got a full day charge, come home, plug it in, just like you're plugging your toaster in. And I want to emphasize this. We do not have a special device, unlike an electric vehicle, Tesla, whatever you want to name, where you have to have a special device. We have a plug-in, and you plug it in anywhere. At your home, it's a 110. 110 is going to take you longer to charge. At any marina throughout the United States and Canada, typically you have what's called a supercharged 220. Again, just a plug-in, you plug it in, you recharge, you're good to go for the next morning.
Well, and most marinas, at least here in the United States, have dock power. So
they do, all of them,
sure,
all of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because you think about your ICE run boats, inboard, outboard, they all have a battery associated, correct? Because how are you running your entertainment, your navigational? It's based off electric power. The gas and diesel runs that energy, runs that engine, whether it's inboard or outboard. But you do have docking systems, a charging system, which is that 220. And I know a number of companies that are progressing forward with charging stations for marinas. But right now we have what's called an onboard charger with our whole unit. We sell this whole unit as one to the boat manufacturer, and that onboard charger recharges that battery and you plug it in at the 220 or the 110.
That's amazing.
Wow,
So
this is great.
Charles, I heard you talking prior to me getting on regarding Tesla, and you can use this and you can quote me, and we've heard it many, many times. We're Tesla on the water. So we're bringing electric to the waterways for many reasons. One, as we know, gas prices are through the roof, especially at a marina. You're paying $8 to $10 if you can find a gas station at a marina.
Yeah.
we want to look at the environment. We know everything's going electric, whether you're in California and you have to switch for your lawnmower to electric lawnmower, or every auto manufacturer is now offering a option to go electric, whether it's Porsche, BMW, Tesla, whatever it may be. You can buy an electric vehicle through them. We
And,
know
the other thing that amazes me, and it's more in the EV space, but the rated horsepower on a lot of these new EVs is incredibly high. I mean, when, I grew up in the 60s. So, the 60s was plenty of muscle and 400 horsepower and etc. And that was the top end. And then, of course, there was the economy side of it, which lasted for about 15 or 20 years, where, we went from big V8s to
sure.
big V6s and some 4s. But now, I mean, it's not unusual for an electric motor in an EV to produce 800 horsepower. I mean, it just amazes me. And I see that all the time. And I wonder, and I just assume that if the demand is there, you can probably ramp that up to double.
Yeah, again, it's harnessing the power coming off the battery and how you manage that. So that's
Right.
our IP, if you like. We do not have patented technology at this stage. It's something the board may consider, but we don't want to open up to the world our IP. So we've protected it under IP. But back to your comment about EVs, you look at the Hummer that is electric vehicle is running at 1,000 horsepower. You've got the new Rivian truck, which we own at our rental operation in Newport Beach. We were one of the first to get a Rivian truck in Southern California. That's running at about 800 to 900 horsepower. So you get tremendous power off this electric vehicle. And again, it's how you harness the battery or the power from the battery to run this thing. But the Hummer at 1,000 horse, that's something else. But with the water, with our 180 horse, that is that sweet spot, guys. We're looking at that 175 to 200 horse. We're competing against the Mercuries, the Hondas, the Suzukis. That's the sweet spot for the consumer. We have tremendous power and speed and torque with our 180. We're looking at the 18 to 28 foot boat, which is again that sweet spot for the consumer. This is our first generation. We will move into our second and third generations, which will increase power into the 2s and 3s and beyond.
Bruce, I've got to ask you about the sound. I mean, the first time I drove an EV, I was in a freeway in Los Angeles. I got this thing floored and we're at 65 miles an hour, nothing flat. And there was no sound. What about your outboard motors? I mean, how much sound is there except for moving water?
So here's an example. I was on the Bruce 22 that we modified and assembled our eMotion powertrain. I'm in Tampa, and a colleague of ours that works for Vision Marine, Connor, was driving. Him and I are going 40 miles an hour in the bay there. Him and I are having a conversation just like you and I are having right now. So to your point, it's noiseless. There's no noise. You don't have the smell. You don't have the sound of a major outboard motor or diesel. In addition, there's no carbon emissions. So, again, that is a big thing with electric. We have no carbon emissions, no noise. It's in essence, maintenance free. We state it's 90% maintenance free relative to a 200 horse ICE engine. You're always going to maintain whatever you have, but you don't have spark plugs to change. You don't have oil to change. So it's just cleaning and making sure you've got unlike a ICE outboard motor, every year you're going to maintain, there's a cost associated. It's going to run you $2,000, $3,000, $1,000. Ours costs you nothing. Ours costs you $5 to recharge versus whatever your gas is going to cost you. So that's the beauty and the benefit of electric on the waterways for us.
That
So
sounds
talk
like-
to us about the company a little.
Sure.
Stock,
Yep.
what you see from the standpoint of what kind of growth you generally are looking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. And again, we jumped in quick, but I appreciate the time, Charles, and for having us on Vision Marine Technologies. I think it's a tremendous story. I got involved about 3 years now, I guess, maybe over 3 years. I've been involved in the public markets, whether it's oil and gas, mining, or tech deals. I got involved, a small company out of Montreal, Canada, with the founders. They had electric boats, electric propulsion boats, in addition to this technology to build a fully electric outboard motor. So we came in, raised some capital. We raised $5.5 million US. Through an investment banker I knew here in the United States. We did a direct IPO onto NASDAQ in November of 2020. And if you recall that month, especially at the end of November, it was the hottest EV market going at the time. You had EV concept plays that were trading at hundreds of million valuation, if not billion valuation. They were raising stupid money, putting huge cash into the till, but it was concept. They didn't have anything. So we came into the market at that time. We raised $27.5 million on our IPO at $10 a share. The stock ran up to 18 bucks. It was a tremendous win for the company. We raised that capital in 6 days. We traded the float, which is probably 3.5 million, I don't know, 6-8 times during that period. Unfortunately, when things go up, things come down, and the EV market got knocked on its ass. We got kind of grouped into the EV market and we came down as well. So we're sitting very nicely right now. We have just under $10 million cash, no debt, limited burn. A lot of our money is deployed to acquiring supplies, whether that's securing batteries for our upcoming orders, whether that's having a monitoring system, a lowercase system, a shell to put everything in, etc. So we deploy the money to secure supply issues. We're trading at about a 45 million market cap. We've got
and the stock seems, I looked at the chart, the stock seems incredibly stable down here.
It's kind of, you know, we were sitting at that 330 a couple of weeks ago, traded up to 4, just under 5, sitting at this 460, 70 level. So it is pretty tight. It's only got 8.2 million shares outstanding. The float is roughly 4.5. I like to think I've got 1.5 million or 2 million put away with very tight shareholders that love our deal and that understand what we're doing. We're in the midst of discussions. One of the biggest issues for us was pandemic. We're out of Montreal. They shut the Canadian border down for 18 months, and we couldn't get to the boat shows. And that's typically where you showcase your product. Now, we have spoken to all the major boat manufacturers, and I'll just state that they have come out publicly that they are expanding their footprint from an electric standpoint. So they understand that they know they need to go electric.
Is there much in the way of competition in your side of the industry?
Again, with the power and speed we have, there's no competition. There is competition at the lower end, so 50 horse and below, that is fully electric. Companies out of Germany, companies out of China that provide that option for low power. But that does not.
That seems to me it would be with the lack of noise and that kind of speed. That would seem to me to be more the fishermen, etc., as opposed to somebody taking the family out, you know, at 10 o'clock in the morning to go to an island in the middle of a lake for a picnic.
Yeah, and I just want a little technical here on the electric. You understand that there's peak power and then there's consistent power. So we market our 180 at 180 consistent power. Our peak power is roughly 225. Now, if you look at the 50 horse, your peak is 50 and your consistent is probably about 35 horse. That's not going to push an 18 to 28 foot boat on the water at all. I guarantee.
That's why I
that.
said it. It would seem to me those would be the I'm going out to do something specific kind of guys.
Yeah. Well, Charles, this has been an amazing show. You've gone from non-psychedelics to electric boats all in 1 hour. So
yeah, I really like this story.
Oh yeah, this is amazing. So,
give them the website and the
I will. And I would highly, again, have your audience, your investors take a look at Vision Marine Technologies. We trade on NASDAQ under the symbol VMAR, Victor, Mary, Apple, Robert. Our website is visionmarinetechnologies.com. And as I stated, the key to this company is the orders from the boat manufacturers. And I'd like to think upcoming, we will disclose some of that, but we are a revenue producer. We're going to exit August 31, which is our fiscal year, probably about 8 million rev off the boat rentals in Newport Beach in our e-commerce platform.
That's great. Thanks for being with us, Bruce.
Charles, thanks a million. And Bruce, thank you so much. Wow, this has been an amazing day with Charles Moskowitz, the Great Wise Oz on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, talking the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world.